Hello, it's Tim from Fairplay Now on the 10th of September 2025. So it's been a little while, but I did say in my last video or two that I'd only really be making videos, for the time being at least, if I really felt like I had something to say, something to talk about, something to recommend. And that is certainly the case today because last night I ended up watching a film which I've been meaning to see for quite a long time. I only just got round to it last night, but boy oh boy is it a fantastic film, and highly recommended. And of course the link for it is going to be in the description box below, as I normally do, so I can sort of recommend you watch it. So a little bit of background on the film before I give my thoughts on it. I think it's probably about 2.5 years ago, somewhere around then. Mark Sharman and Oracle Films, who are both well known, sort of, about things to do with making films in the freedom movement. And they made a film back then all about the nonsense and things and arms and everything, all that craziness that happened 5 years ago. And it was a great film, very well received. And not long after that, I heard that they were going to make basically a sequel to it, but more to do with Agenda 2030 this time. And it was actually supposed to come out in the spring of last year, so about 18 months ago, but there was various delays for various things. I think they wanted to add more content in and various other things like that, so they only managed to release it, I think, earlier this summer, and I've just got round to seeing it last night, like I say. Now it's called The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future. And as I said a minute ago, it's all about 2030 and what the powers that shouldn't be have in store for everybody in the world and the world in general. And it does make for some quite shocking viewing. I'm sure if you're in the freedom movement and you've been following me and people like me for any length of time, you're probably aware of a lot of this kind of stuff. But it's surprising how many people out there just are still trundling along, thinking the world's exactly the same, or not exactly the same, because it's all been working up to this, as you'll see in the film, but they think it's something that's a lot more benign than it really is, and that people who go on about this kind of thing are just crazy conspiracy theorists, and they've got no clue whatsoever what these powers that shouldn't be really want to do, what they've got in store for us, and if they get their own way, the kind of horrendous future they want to impose on us, you and me. Not them, of course. They'll still be eating fine foods and steaks and all kinds of things, but they want us to eat insects and bugs and what have you, and that's only a tiny part of it. But the film does a really good job of explaining absolutely everything, the origins of this kind of madness, how it's kind of progressed and built up over the years, the mechanisms they're using to enable it, and the propaganda they're kind of putting out into the world to try and bring in what they want to bring in. And it's kind of puts everything, it's a one-stop shop. It kind of puts everything into one place, so it really does make for a fantastic viewing. One thing I've always found with all this freedom stuff is you tend to get, you have to do a lot of digging, a lot of research. You have to dig here for a nugget of information in one place, then go somewhere else and get a bit more somewhere else. But this does a really good job of bringing everything into one place. So it is quite a long film, just under 2 hours, I think. But I found that time went by without even really noticing it, actually. It's a really well put together film, as you'd expect from Oracle Films and Mark Sharman. They certainly know how to make a compelling documentary, which quality-wise, it's every bit as good as what you'd find on mainstream media, you know, sort of BBC, ITV, Sky, whatever. In fact, I think they actually make these films hoping that one day it will end up on mainstream media. So, which hopefully it will, because it will then open a lot of people's eyes. Yeah, whether that happens or not, I don't know. But they're certainly kind of making these films so that with that in mind, so if they do get a chance to put it on the BBC or something like that, the quality and the production values are going to be there. So it's a very watchable film, and yeah, it's a really good one actually if you're sitting down with some kind of friends and family who are normies. You can sort of say, well, look, I've come across this really good film recently, let's put it on, let's see what it's all about. And yeah, it may well open a few eyes, and it may well sort of, yeah, they may well be surprised about the quality of production and the quality of people that you know, we've got here in the freedom movement to put these messages across. So yeah, like I say, the link to it will be in the description box below. So it's called The Agenda, Their Vision, Your Future, which, yeah, their vision, as the film says, it all sounds all very grand and very benign and lovely and fluffy, but the future that you and me are going to get from it is anything but. It's going to be absolutely horrendous if they get this sort of stuff in. And one thing that I wasn't aware of, I suppose I've been a little bit stepped back from the freedom movement recently. We did have that protest march up in Oxford a couple of years ago nearly, 18 months ago, and that was all about 15-minute cities, how Oxford were bringing in these roadblocks to try and facilitate a 15-minute city in Oxford. And they mentioned in this film that that has now actually been rolled back. The council have been forced to take that back because of the protests. That was words from the film, which, if you were at that protest or involved with the other protests to do with 15-minute cities, it just goes to show you that, protesting and speaking out really does work. So I found that a very heartening bit of the film. And anyone who says, what's the point of protesting? It doesn't do any good. It never works. Well, actually it does. I think we would have had a much worse kind of time of it 4 or 5 years ago if we hadn't have done those protests. And no doubt Oxford would still be rolling out their 15-minute city nonsense now if we hadn't done that Oxford protest as well. So that's something that really stood out to me in the film. But there's just so much in the film, you'll see when you watch it. But it is really great. And another thing that stood out to me was they kind of say how if you've got any kind of alternative viewpoint whatsoever that doesn't align with the common narrative, this kind of stuff that the BBC and ITV and all the rest of it, mainstream media, come out with, if you start coming out with stuff totally different, how you're just regarded as a conspiracy theorist, even though all that people have done is watch the BBC for an hour, and you've done hundreds or even thousands of hours of proper research looking into everything rather than just the stuff the BBC want you to look at. And yet apparently, because we do this kind of due diligence, this in-depth research, it's us who are the crazy ones rather than the people who really are the crazy ones, the ones who just sit and watch kind of broadcasts by organisations who are corrupt. They're affected and paid off by corrupt entities. They only come out with one side of the narrative, but people just, for some reason, in this crazy world, think that it's us who are the crazy ones, when in fact they're crazy just for listening to one side of things rather than the many sides the likes of you and me do. So I don't know, that's a bizarre thing. And they've actually got this whole conspiracy theorist thing, haven't they, where all they've got to do, if you're sort of speaking out and you're sort of saying something like, oh, well, actually I read this book sort of that kind of contradicts the whole climate change thing, for just to take one example there, or it contradicts this other thing over here, and yeah, maybe we should sort of look more into that. And people, you'd think people would be, in general, would be, oh yeah, what's the name of this book? Yeah, I'll go and check it out. Yeah, thanks for the heads up. No, you know, all you get is, oh, that's just crazy conspiracy theorist stuff. I'm not interested in even looking at that. What, you're just interested in listening to state mainstream media, BBC propaganda, are you, rather than sort of getting the whole truth? You know, that's how I'd argue back at them. But no, it's just the way these people have been led to believe, and the whole conspiracy theory thing has been weaponized so that the likes of you and me can just be closed down with a simple sentence: you're a crazy conspiracy theorist. And then, even though you've just spent the last 1,000 hours researching that, you know, what you're talking about, no, you're still a crazy conspiracy theorist. And it's quite interesting, because that's exactly what the old Soviet Union and other communist regimes used to do, and it's still what the communist regimes and other authoritarian regimes who are still in existence do. Basically, if there's a dissenter, people are sort of coming out against the state propaganda and the state generally, they used to, at least in the Soviet Union, they used to say, oh, don't listen to these dissenters, they're just mentally ill. So no need to worry about what they're talking about, because it's just crazy nonsense. And that's kind of what they've done with the whole conspiracy theorist thing, because someone, although they're not saying it, they're being all very polite about it, more polite than they were perhaps in the Soviet Union. But when they call you a conspiracy theorist, what they're actually saying is, mate, you're just a little bit balmy, aren't you? Really, you're a little bit crazy. Maybe you should sort of take a trip to the mental health doctor and get yourself checked out. And you know, that is almost what they are saying, isn't it, in effect? And if you're like that, you are of the frame of mind where you like to call people a conspiracy theorist just because they're coming out with stuff that's not on the BBC. Maybe you want to take heed that you are employing an old Soviet communist tactic, and yeah, maybe that's not quite such a good route or plan of action to be following. So unless you're a communist, of course, you know, take it as that, really. You know, I'll say no more than that. Anyway, yeah, we're getting on a little bit in this video. I like to keep them shortish. Hopefully I've given you a really good introduction to this film. Do check it out. The link will be in the description box below here. So go and check that out, and I'll be back soon when I've got something else I feel like I need to get off my chest. So until then, Tim from Fair Play Now, thanks for watching.